I'll be speaking very briefly more from the context, from the point of view of an intergovernmental organisation, so less really about the action of science advice, but more on the kind of role that an intergovernmental organisation can have in kind of facilitating and supporting. So firstly, let me just say thank you very much to the organisers, to the Government of South Africa, and to all our colleagues across the G20, all the members, for convening this very important dialogue. And it is an honour for UNESCO to participate in this Chief Science Advisors Roundtable. As I said, as an intergovernmental organisation, and the only UN specialised agency with a dedicated mandate for science, UNESCO, we hope with the S in UNESCO, which not everyone is aware of, standing for science, brings a unique responsibility to advance science in the service of peace, sustainable development and human well-being. Now this year marks the 80th anniversary of UNESCO from rebuilding international scientific cooperation after the Second World War. We've grown since then into an organisation that combines intergovernmental literacy, legitimacy and scientific excellence. And our role really is to build bridges between research communities and policymakers, ensuring that science advice is both evidence-based and trusted. And at the global level, UNESCO supports the UN Secretary-General's Scientific Advisory Board, as we just heard from Ms. Suzuki just a few short minutes ago, helping to build and ensure scientific perspectives reach the highest level of decision-making forums. And our designation to lead the UN Decade for Sciences for Sustainable Development, which runs from last year up till 2030, is an unprecedented opportunity to strengthen advisory mechanisms worldwide and to embed scientific advance into a systematic, inclusive and capacity-building framework. So from UNESCO's mechanisms in their advisory capacity, we approach this through, we can say, three main channels. The first of which being international scientific programs, such as the International Hydrology Programme, which is on water governance, the Man in the Biosphere programs, which are on biodiversity and sustainable development. And these really demonstrate how intergovernmental cooperation translates into science policy, guidance and at national and at regional levels. We also concern ourselves with nominative instruments, so global standard-setting instruments, and I'll just give you a couple of examples of these. The 2017 recommendation on science and scientific researchers, the 2021 recommendation on open science, and indeed this year is a very important year for us for this recommendation because it's an obligation or a commitment of the Member States 4 years after the adoption of a recommendation to report back to us and to the other members on the progress that they've made in implementing this recommendation over the years. And this has happened and it will be presented in our executive board, which is coming up early next month in the general conference, which is in November. We have also the same year, 2021, the recommendation on the ethics of artificial intelligence. And these examples of these frameworks define principles, the rights and responsibilities, helping to ensure scientific advice is inclusive, is transparent, and also, as we've heard before, worthy of public trust. And we also have policy and tools for capacity building, and one example here is our global observatory on STI policy instruments called GoSpin, which helps governments to map and strengthen their STI systems to ensure that advisory mechanisms are not isolated but embedded in coherent national strategies. And we have an exciting announcement which will be on Wednesday morning in the Research and Innovation Group Working Group Ministerial session on the further developments in this programme, which I shall leave till then for us to show you. So just a couple of maybe lessons learned from this, which I think will echo what we've heard previously. Science advice can't be effective in isolation. Advisory bodies must be anchored in strong STI systems, but they must also be able to absorb and act on recommendations. We can say that norms and standards matter. Advisory systems work best when they're rooted in shared principles, shared commonly agreed principles, such as openness, inclusivity and ethical responsibility. And then capacity and equity must be central. So in developing countries particularly, this means long-term mentorship, peer-to-peer learning, also at the subnational levels, where many pressing policy decisions on some of the issues we've been discussing this morning, health, climate, planning, are actually made. And finally, maybe just a quick word on science diplomacy. So particularly in the current situation, the geopolitical context we're in now, in a world of geopolitical divides, science advice must also serve as a tool for science diplomacy. And UNESCO recently held a global ministerial dialogue earlier in the year in our headquarters, which really demonstrated for us the great interest in this issue at the moment, from the level of participation in terms of seniority, but also in global spread. And this really underscored how strong national advisory systems are essential for effective international cooperation, whether in negotiating treaties, managing shared resources, and responding to pandemics. And I think sharing of best examples of some we've heard here, but really the best examples how science advice mechanisms work is something really we can do and have a role in sharing. So if I may just very quickly then, just a quick comment on this process itself. So we're very much committed to fostering inclusive and just access to scientific knowledge and resources, including through open science, as we mentioned, and supporting the implementation of Sustainable Development Goals, bridging these STI divides between nations. And we very much appreciate this Chief Science Advisor Roundtable mechanism, and of course welcome the outcome statement which was agreed on this morning. And as UNESCO, we'd be very honoured to continue to support this process as necessary. Just to mention, together with the Government of India in 2024, we hosted the Chief Science Advisors Roundtable at the UNESCO headquarters in Paris, and we'll be happy to do so again in 2026 if that's so desired by the members, by the Chief Science Advisor members, the G20 members, in whatever appropriate formulation that may be, depending on the current context or the context of the presidency and so on next year. So with that, I'll say thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.